Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a Prancing Pony podcast production. I'm the Man of the West, and it is time to wrap up Week 89 with Silmarillion Saturday. These Saturdays are our chance to revisit the history and legends of the Elder Days, whether from the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, or more. And since I started the TTT back in May of 2023, we've bounced around the Silmarillion quite a bit. We've also taken short sidebars, a couple of episodes on the Druidine, and very long digressions, 3 full series on Eldarion and Arendis. Now, we've covered the material in the book The Silmarillion that isn't part of the Quenta Silmarillion proper. That would be the Ainulindale, which we covered last series, the Valaquenta, the Akalabeth, and Of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. So what's left? Well, since we're covering the story of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin, I thought we should cover the parts of the Silmarillion that lead up to his time there. So we're going to spend a few weeks in the chapter of Miglin to introduce us to a few very important characters, and then move on to Of the Ruin of Beleriand and the Fall of Fingolfin, which will complete next series. Chapter 16 of Miglin. Aredhel Arfaniel, the White Lady of the Noldor, daughter of Fingolfin, dwelt in Nevrast with Turgon her brother, and she went with him to the Hidden Kingdom. But she wearied of the guarded city of Gondolin, desiring ever the longer more to ride again in the wide lands and to walk in the forests, as had been her wont in Valinor. And when 200 years had passed since Gondolin was full wrought, she spoke to Turgon and asked leave to depart. Turgon was loath to grant this, and long denied her, but at the last he yielded, saying, "Go then, if you will, though it is against my wisdom, and I forebode that ill will come of it, both to you and to me. But you shall go only to seek Fingon our brother, and those that I send with you shall return hither to Gondolin as swiftly as they may." But Aredhel said, "I am your sister and not your servant, and beyond your bounds I will go as seems good to me. And if you begrudge me an escort, then I will go alone." Then Turgon answered, "I grudge you nothing that I have, yet I desire that none shall dwell beyond my walls who know the way hither. And if I trust you, my sister, others I trust less to keep guard on their tongues." And Turgon appointed 3 lords of his household to ride with Aredhel, and he bade them lead her to Fingon in Hithlum, if they might prevail upon her. "And be wary," he said, "for though Morgoth be yet hemmed in the north, there are many perils in Middle-earth, of which the lady knows nothing." Then Aredhel departed from Gondolin, and Turgon's heart was heavy at her going. But when she came to the ford of Brithiach in the river Sirion, she said to her companions, "Turn now south and not north, for I will not ride to Hithlum. My heart desires rather to find the sons of Feanor, my friends of old." And since she could not be dissuaded, they turned south as she commanded, and sought admittance into Doriath. But the march wardens denied them, for Thingol would suffer none of the Noldor to pass the girdle, save his kinsfolk of the house of Finarfin, and least of all, those that were friends of the sons of Feanor. Therefore the march wardens said to Aredhel, "To the land of Celegorm, for which you seek, lady, you may by no means pass through the realm of King Thingol. You must ride beyond the girdle of Melian, to the south or to the north. The speediest way is by the paths that lead east from the Brithiach through Dimbar, and along the north march of this kingdom, until you pass the bridge of Escalduin and the fords of Aros, and come to the lands that lie behind the hill of Himring. There dwell, as we believe, Celegorm and Curufin, and it may be that you will find them, but the road is perilous." Then Aredhel turned back and sought the dangerous road between the haunted valleys of Ered Gorgoroth and the north fences of Doriath. And as they drew near to the evil region of Nan Dungortheb, the riders became enmeshed in shadows, and Aredhel strayed from her companions and was lost. They sought long for her in vain, fearing that she had been ensnared or had drunk from the poisoned streams of that land. But the fell creatures of Ungoliant that dwelt in the ravines were aroused and pursued them, and they hardly escaped with their lives. When at last they returned and their tale was told, there was great sorrow in Gondolin, and Turgon sat long alone, enduring grief and anger in silence. But Aredhel, having sought in vain for her companions, rode on, for she was fearless and hardy of heart, as were all the children of Finwë. And she held on her way, and crossing Escalduin and Aros, came to the land of Himlad, between Aros and Kelon, where Celegorm and Curufin dwelt in those days before the breaking of the siege of Angband. At that time they were from home, riding with Caranthir east in Thargelion. But the people of Celegorm welcomed her, and bade her stay among them with honor until their lord's return. There for a while she was content, and had great joy in wandering free in the woodlands. But as the year lengthened, and Celegorm did not return, she became restless again, and took to riding alone ever further abroad, seeking for new paths and untrodden glades. Thus it chanced in the waning of the year that Aredhel came to the south of Himlad, and passed over Kelon, and before she was aware, she was enmeshed in Nan Elmoth. So, combine the stubbornness of Aredhel with the controlling nature of Turgon and the understandable bitterness of Thingol, and we have a recipe for disaster here. Once again, Turgon is given foresight. I forebode that ill will come of it both to you and me is understatement writ large here. But what if she'd gone only to seek Fingon? Look at a map of Beleriand. She and her escort go south from Gondolin, reach the fort of Brithiac. From there, she should turn north and head up to Sirion, past the Isle of Tol Sirion. We're in the year 316 of the First Age here. It'll be another 140 years before Sauron captures that fortress, naming it Tol in Gaurhoth. Then she would go along the Ered Mithrim to Aethel Sirion, where Turgon resides. Instead, she heads south, seeking to cross through Doriath eastward, a long journey to get to the lands of Celegorm far to the east. And she gets there safely, unlike her escort. But her wanderlust isn't sated, and she wanders straight into Nan Elmoth. Can I just add that if you're enmeshed somewhere, it's probably not a good thing. We'll see that next week. Folks, that does it for this week's Silmarillion Saturday. Thank you for joining me, and please come back next week as we meet the dark elf Eol and come to one of the most genuinely disturbing lines in all of Tolkien. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can get an ad-free feed, bonus episodes, and become a part of my content council to help decide what I'll talk about next series. Podcast listeners, please be sure to subscribe to the TTT in your podcast apps. For those on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel to get all of the PPP productions, and be sure you're following @PrancingPonyPod on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.